Hello all. So in this lecture we are going to see about class object attributes and methods associated with class. So in the last video we have seen how to define a class and how to create attributes in the class, like different attributes of the book such as pages, color, author, and these attributes are user defined and it can be anything, like the color can be yellow, red or something. So these attributes can hold any value which is not restricted to integer or float. This attribute can hold any value like int, float, string, dictionary list, and many others. So we are passing the argument and it gets assigned to the attribute name over here. So whatever the argument is passed here, this instance will be created with the attribute pages, color, and author. So that's we are passing and it get assigned here. So in some cases, we need to define our attribute in a class object level. So we will be defining it above the init attribute. So the attributes created at the class object level will be accessed by all instances of the class, and it's not restricted that at each instance you have to define it. So here I'm making the comment. It's class object attribute, which means this will be same for all instances of this class. So since it is same for all instances of the class, we don't need to use the self keyword because self keyword acts as reference to the instance created for this class. So self keyword is not needed. So here I'm creating the country of origin, which will be India. So here it is clear that I'm not using the self keyword because it's going to be same for all the instances. So if I run this, so now you can see, cut it for your reference. So when I try to create an instance of this object book, you can see it. So it's requiring only 3 arguments, not the country, which is defined at class object level. Similarly, you can use this. So now if I want to print, I hit tab here, and here you can see the country is included now. So if you want to print the country, it will be same for all the instances of the object. So if you run this, you can see the country is India. So similarly, you can check every attribute if you want. It will be going to same what you have assigned it here. Even though we haven't defined the country, it is always available to us. So you can access it anywhere, anytime in your code. So next we will move to concept called methods. So normally methods are like functions which are defined inside the class, which may actually use the arguments you are passing to the class. Methods are actually similar to functions, but they will be defined inside the class. So normally methods will perform some operations based on the objects you are passing to it. So let's create a method for that. For that we have to use def keyword. You may think of methods as similar to functions, but the key difference is methods will use the attributes which are linked to the object. So here I'm defining a method called print and I'm linking it to the actual object using the self keyword. So if I hit enter, so this method will, okay, I'll just rename it. That's a keyword. So this will print the number of pages in the book. So I will use the fstring method. So here you can see I'm just printing a sentence here. So whenever this method is called, this will be printed. So whenever you are going to call print book using the science instance, then this statement will be executed and it will be printed. So now I will show you another important feature here. You don't need to pass it using the argument name because it's more or less like positional arguments. So it will be linked to the attribute name based on the position you are passing it. So 400 will be the first value you are giving here will be linked to the first argument, which is pages, and second to the color, and third to the author. So I think this is now clear for you. Why am I doing this? So now if I run this, you will see no error and the statement will be printed as 400 because I'm here referring to the pages. So one key difference you can see between attributes and methods is that you don't pass attributes using this open and close bracket because it won't be executable. For methods, you just have to use the open and close bracket because it will be executed. For example, if you want to run the method print book, you can see it's automatically coming as a function here. If you neglect that open and close bracket, you will see something like this. You will see an error because the method associated with this instance signs is not executed. So you have to make the method executable using the open and close bracket. Now if you run this, you can see it here. This book was good. Note down the key difference that attributes are not executable, so you don't need to use the open and close bracket here. For attributes, you are just referring them. For functions, you have to execute them. So you have to compulsorily use this open and close bracket. Here you can see none is also written because this is a method executable and it's not returning anything. So none is printed. Here I'm printing both an attribute and a method. So pay closer attention. I'm just printing country here. So it won't be an issue. Here I'm using a method. Here it's only self. So here I'm not taking any input argument. Now I have called the method using print.book. Run this. You can see the attribute country was returned and the method print book has executed. So we have already discussed that method is going to use information about the object itself. So for example, so here we are linking our method with the object using the self keyword. So if you want to use one of the attribute defined in your object, you just have to use the self keyword, and I will show you how to print the number of pages in the book. Yes. So for this, I'm going to use this fstrings method. Here, just passing the pages is not enough because we need to link the particular instance of the object with the method. So for that, we have to use self.pages because the instance signs is linked with the object book using the self.pages attribute. To get the reference of it, we have to just use self.pages. So now if you run this, your attribute will be returned and the method will be executed. For executing the method, we are just using the open and close bracket here. So now if you run this, you can see the method is executed with the instance signs because we are using the self keyword here. So the self.pages will be referring to the number of pages created in the instance. So if you run this, you can see the result here. The book has 400 pages. So here we have seen how the methods are taking the attribute values and it's replacing them. Now we can see how methods will take some external values. So here I'm putting copies, and so I will zoom out so that it will be clear. So now you can see I'm just getting an external value. So whenever you call the method, you have to pass some value here. So if you run this without passing, you will get it's missing one positional argument. So if you pass something, so I'm here passing as 10. If I run this, you can see the book has 400 pages and will have 10 copies. So here you can see I'm not using the self keyword because it's an external argument I'm passing and it will be linked directly to the copies in this method. So we have learned attributes and methods through this book example. Let's understand it more by using some other useful examples. So I will clear the screen. So now let's do some mathematics using Python. Okay, let's create a class. So I'm creating a class circle here. So here I'm creating a class object attribute, and now here I'm creating the value for pi, which is a 3.14. So irrespective of the instance of the circle I'm creating, the value pi, which will be always returnable as 3.14. That's the use of class object attribute. So next we will use our init method. So this will be normally used along with the self keyword. So whenever you create a new instance, the argument will get linked to the attribute. So the argument needed for the circle is radius. So just hitting enter. So here I'm just assigning the argument to an attribute name, which will be same as this. So here you can see all the three names are same as we discussed for user convenience because the argument we are getting and assigning it to self.ret so that the value from the instance will be linked to the object circle. So this is our attribute we are getting from the user whenever the circle instance is created. So also I will show you some basic like default setting. Here you can set the value for the argument. So here I am setting as 1. This will be our argument. So now let's jump in to create our method. So I'm creating a method called area and linking it to the instance using the self keyword. So in the method I'm just returning the value return 5 or power 2. So this is the formula for area. So I'm in the method area. I'm just returning the value pi r square. So here you may note this is not good enough because for every instance of the circle created, we have to reference it using only the self keyword. So we have to use self.py and self.r. If you run this, you will see no error. So our class is created now. So now let's just create the instance of the class circle. So I'm just creating circ1, which is circle. I'm not passing any argument here because I already made a default argument. So I'm just typing the instance of the object circ1 dot, and if I hit tab, so here you can see the attribute pi and radian and the method area. So if I give pi, so now if I run this, you will see it's returning 3.14. So pi is an class object attribute, so it will be same irrespective of how many instances you have created. So instead of pi, if I just call radius, which is the attribute, so if I run this, you can see it's returning 1. But here you can see I'm not passing any value to the instance because here I'm making the argument rar as in default to be 1. So if you want to overwrite it, you can just give anything here so that it will be overwritten. Here you can see I'm just creating the instance circ1 with argument 2. So here you can see it's returning 2. It's completely overwritten. And if you want to call the method associated with the instance, circ1 dot area is returning. So I'll print this. So here you can see the area of the circle is written here. So if you pass 50, you can see the area is calculated and returned here. So these are the basics of the method. We have seen 2 examples and understood clearly what method and attributes are and how to define a class, how to create an instance of the class, and how to link method with the instance of the class. So another one important thing to note down is if you have an attribute rate, it doesn't necessarily to be defined in a parameter call. So if I'm creating an attribute for circumference, which is pi into rad into 2. So 2 pi r is the circumference of the circle. So here you can see I'm not using the self keyword because it's already within the attribute. But for pi we have to use self.pi because it's a class object attribute. So now if I run this, it's no error. If I want the circumference to be printed, you can see circum is listed here, and this call will return the circumference of the circle. Here you can see the circumference is 314 and the area is 7850. So another important thing is for a class object attributes, it's not needed to define using self keyword. You can also use the name of the object since it's a class object attribute. Here I'm just using the circle.py because circle is the class name. So if I run it, you'll see the same result. So this method is very useful because sometime back if you come and look at your code, you can see and say it's a class object attribute because we are not using self keyword to reference it. We are going to explore more concepts in further lectures. So thanks for watching this video. Meet you in the next video.